Welcome to All Things Retreat Podcast. I'm Holly Porter, your host and CEO of Retreat R&R. With over 25 years of experience in designing transformative retreats, I'm here to share insights and inspiration to help you create extraordinary experiences. Whether you're a pro or just starting out, you'll find valuable ideas here. Enjoy the ride. Let's dive in. She's a teacher turned author who loves Jesus, her husband Ben, and granola. Growing up, Amber looked for faith and mental health resources and found none. Today, she offers hope for young Christians struggling with mental illness that goes beyond simply reading your Bible and praying more, because you can love Jesus and still suffer from anxiety. Welcome to the show, Amber.
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Holly.
Yeah, happy to have you. So a little bit different of a subject today than we always bring, but these are all the retreats. That's why we're called All Things Retreats. And when we talk about retreats, there are all kinds out there. And so for our listeners today, this is just a little bit more of a spiritual one that we're going to be talking about, and how you work through your things and how you brought retreat into your business and what you're doing now. So let's just get into it. What inspired you to create the Mental Reset Christian Co-ed Mental Health Retreat, and what makes it unique from other retreats?
I think what inspired me for sure was kind of going into a little bit of my backstory and what I grew up in, the environment. I think growing up, even though I was in a Christian household and, have always loved the Lord, I felt like a lot of the time my struggles were kind of internalized. I just needed to be stronger and better and pray more, and just got a lot of cliche answers sometimes, unfortunately, from uh, other communities or churches. And so I was in this place where I was really struggling with pretty deep anxiety, trauma, and depression. And it really wasn't until I got to college that I started realizing A, I was not the only person struggling with these things, but B, that something practical needed to happen in order for me to find that help. And so once I started my own holistic journey, started going to therapy, started, learning what negative core beliefs are that I had believed about myself, and actually combining those practical therapy resources with the faith that I had always had, I realized that there were a lot of people that felt just like I did, where they were really worn down, they were spiritually dry, they felt like they were alone, that nobody understood, that they were broken because, they were a believer of Jesus, but they still had these struggles, and they felt like, well, if I really am saved, or I really do have that relationship with him, then why am I not fixed yet? And so that was kind of the heart behind what led me into wanting to host a environment or retreat for that. And so, especially after I taught high school students, continued to see this trend. I worked in both private and public schools, so I worked with all sorts of different religions, and just kind of continued to see this need of these kids and these young adults, and Gen Z specifically, going through like what I was when I was their age and just not finding help. So because I'm an author and that is what I primarily write about, I thought that I could also provide them a practical space where it would be safe and healing. They could find soul deep healing and rest and renewal. And that was really important to me. And I think definitely what is different in this retreat is that, I've been to a lot of retreats, and I have heard of a lot of retreats. And I think there's a couple things that make mine stand out. First of all, this is the first co-ed retreat specifically focused on mental health for Christians that are struggling. And so I have not ever seen that done unless it was, a one-time thing with the church. I also believe it's the only retreat that is giving practical advice that is rooted not only in our faith, but also in practical coping skills that you get from credentialed therapy. And so it's a space where there's not only going to be, biblical tools, but there's also going to be practical psychological tools, and combining that. And it's also just a safe space where, we're going to incorporate exercise in a way that's fun and go on hikes. We're going to have meals that are balanced. And so it's kind of this holistic approach as a whole that's going to help them heal. And I think sometimes retreats can get a lot of hype, where it's like, oh, come to this space, this is so awesome, and meet all these friends. But people leave really overwhelmed with, okay, that was transformational, but how do I actually apply that to my life now that I'm gone? And so my goal is to provide that transformational space that is really enjoyable, but also gives them the practical tools that they can come away from that retreat knowing, oh, you know what, like, Yeah, actually, I did learn something to help my anxiety, and I did learn something to not feel so alone in my depression.
Right. So I know you haven't had this particular retreat is coming up, but what is your thought process behind doing co-ed? Because I don't hear people stepping into that very often. And I'm just kind of curious, like, what does the rooming situation look like? And are these couples or does it matter?
It's been a really fun situation to deal with. So, to answer the first part of your question, I really felt like the Lord placed on my heart to do co-ed because there's just an equal number of statistics of
Yeah.
men specifically like not getting help for mental health.
Right.
My husband in particular has obsessive compulsive disorder. I have high functioning anxiety. And so in talking with him, I was like, you know what? I think that I need to create a space and do it the right way that is healthy for both of them to grow, where they're also going to get separate sessions by themselves, but they're also going to mingle with other people. It's not matchmaking. This is not trying to get people in relationships. But to answer your question about rooming, yeah, there are options for couples. So if you're married, there are separate rooms that married couples can be in. And then we have basically separate floors for the females from the males. And so if you're, a female and you want to go with your sister or your best friend, then you can be in a room with them, or you can get in a room with four other single girls. Same for guys. You can be in a room with four other guys. And so I think it's going to be a great safe space where people are able to interact with the opposite sex. But they also are going to have their alone time where they can talk about topics that might not be comfortable around each other. So, for example, there's going to be a session. Somebody requested having a session on like pornography, and so there's going to be a separate session on that, like just the men are going to get. And at the same time, then the girls are going to go through a session about eating disorders, for example. But then there's going to be a session where everybody's together and we're
Right.
talking about how we can build each other up and help each other with those struggles. So
Yeah,
I
I
think it's
think
really important.
I feel like bringing both those energies together could be super helpful with this subject and learning from each other, just listening to the opposite sex and figuring out how they are handling things. Because men and women handle things completely different. So I'm curious about the venue. Then are you what kind of a venue are you doing?
I'm super pumped about the venue. The venue is called Golden Acres Lodge. It's in Hocking Hills, Ohio. It hosts around 26 people. We have 30 people total that it can technically hold, but we have some speakers that are just coming for the day and then
Yeah.
leaving. And so it is a phenomenal, beautiful space with, a huge acreage of private
Mhm.
hiking, but it's also close proximity to the local Hocking Hills Park. And so it has a bunch of different bedrooms, separate bathrooms. There's an area to play outdoor games. There's a private lake. It is absolutely just stunning. And when I saw it, I'm kind of like a, do it or don't do it kind of
Yeah.
person. And I was like, you know what? Like that is the space that is in my head and in my vision. And so that's what we're going to go for. And yeah, if you just Google Golden Acres Lodge, it is stunning.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, it sounds great. First of all, you look like you're in high school. I can't believe you taught high school. Do you still teach high school?
I do not. So I will be 30 in January, but I taught high
Still
school
baby.
from, yeah, I taught high school 2019 to May of 2024. So I guess I've been resigned from teaching. It'll be 2 years in May.
Wow, that's great. Well, all right. So, how do you balance spiritual and practical sides of retreat planning from logistics to soul care?
You always have to start with the logistics, right? I think if you don't have logistics, then people aren't going to have beds to sleep in. And you're going to have a chaos with, you mentioned, separating men from women. That was just a
Yeah.
whole nother game of online ticketing. That was like the worst nightmare of my life. My husband and I worked on that for like at least 30 hours trying to like figure out ticketing systems. But
Hmm.
I think once, you have to get the logistics because without that, you're not going to have the practicality of a retreat. So I do believe that has to come first. But for me, as a believer, I think that the practical and spiritual side is just as important. It's just, I'm rooting the logistics and everything that I do in that faith, and I'm rooting all of my steps in that. And so I think as much as it was important for me to make the retreat affordable, for example, which is part of the logistics, it was important to me that I'm offering them something of value.
Yeah.
And to me, if I'm just giving them what I call, spiritual foo-foo or fluff, that's not me giving them something worth their money. And so, of course, I'm not going to promise healing. I'm not going to promise XYZ that's going to come out of this retreat, but I am going to promise you that you're going to be in an environment where you don't have to feel alone. And you're going to be in an environment where I am going to have these resources available, that you're going to be able to walk away with these practical tools so that you don't need me to help you do that. You can use those things that you've learned, but it's really about empowering them to find that healing and to see what that looks like practically in their lives. And so it's not just, surface level hype. It's very, very prayed over and very intentional for what we're trying to offer the people who attend.
So I'm assuming, but I'm going to ask anyway, your husband's doing this with you?
Yes, he is.
Okay.
And we are hosting it together.
Yeah, I like that. No, it makes sense. I just wanted to clarify. I'm sure other people are wondering that question too. So what advice would you give someone who feels called to lead a retreat, but they don't know where to start?
If someone is feeling called, I think definitely don't ignore that calling. I think it's important to, if you are a believer or whatever your faith might be, it's important to pray about that or to journal about that, to really just work through those details. But I think to remember, at least for me, like God has not given me a spirit of fear or timidity. And so knowing that like, if something is placed on your heart, it's placed on your heart for a reason. And so, don't be afraid to dream. Don't be afraid to shoot for the stars and hope that if you miss, you land among the moon, but I think I would definitely encourage you to tap into that creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you need to be smart and wise about it. I'm not going to tell you to book a $30,000 lodge when you have no idea how you're going to, sell tickets, but also not being afraid to do your research, to ask people to help, to find community, to find friends that are going to rally around you, to find local businesses and churches and whatever it might be to support you in that and help get the word out. I think it's really important to know that you don't have to do this alone.
Yeah. What inspired you to make it co-ed?
Probably getting married, living in a space where there's two people with different mental health issues and one is a male and one is a female is very different. My husband and I have opposite spectrums of anxiety. And so OCD can really make people procrastinate. And then high functioning anxiety makes me do 4,000 tasks every day. And so you mix those in marriage is really fun.
Yeah.
But I think that the heart of that was knowing that I really wanted to create a space, not just for couples, but for men and women that have those struggles individually, and putting them in a space to know that they don't have to be afraid of the opposite sex. I think when I was growing up, I had a lot of this belief that like, oh gosh, like, well, I can't be friends with a guy like unless we're in a relationship. And I do believe that it is possible to have guys and girls that are in healthy relationships that are not, romantically involved. And I think that's really important to our overall growth as individuals, to be able to interact with the opposite sex. And especially with mental health, you can sometimes have such a beautiful perspective from somebody that's different than you. And for example, my therapist that I've had since 2019, like he's a guy and I've never felt more comfortable talking to him. And so just creating that space where they can learn how to healthily interact, but also coming from that place of, I feel the love and support from my husband and I want other people to feel that love and support from each other, even if you're just friends.
Yeah, no doubt. I love that. I've got a great husband that's supportive. I have lots of male friends and I'm on calls all the time with people all over the world. And I just love that he is secure enough within himself and that trust is there, because not everybody has that. I mean, I've been married to someone who was not like that and it was horrible. It's nice to feel like that you're in that space. So, yeah, I think if you have a jealous spouse, maybe then this isn't the retreat for you, because I mean, you're there to heal and it's going to be hard to do that if you're stressing out about somebody not, being comfortable with you being there. So I love that. I love that you're doing it with your husband too. Let's talk about how do retreats like what you're doing help young adults reconnect with faith, community, and mental health in a noisy world.
We are just overstimulated. We are an overstimulated generation. And I say that from a convicting standpoint of myself, that it's really hard for me to not just turn off my brain, but to turn off my devices. And I think that especially Gen Z and young adults and teenagers, they grew up in that generation. I taught high school and there's not a moment that you're not on a cell phone or all of these things. And so I really think that one of the best places to heal from that is getting in nature and stepping away from all of the noise and really practicing guided meditation, really practicing, honestly, just being quiet and silent. And it's so hard, but I've learned that it's easier to do that in groups that you feel safe. And so I think that retreats like this are to create that that safe environment that's not just cozy and fun and peaceful, but it's giving them a space to reset. It's giving them the opportunity to, you know what, like, hey, I just met you, but do you want to go like walk on the acres around the pond and just be quiet and just walk around together so that you're with somebody, but you're taking that time to really meditate on the
Yeah.
beauty that is around you. And so I think that the heart of this in nature, the heart of this in resetting is so important for anybody that struggles to turn off the phone and power it down. And I think that anybody can relate to that.
Yeah, I think so too. I like that. It's amazing how we can take our personal journeys and intertwine them with what we can help people with. And I mean, I'd rather learn from somebody who's been there and been through it or going through it. Although I also want to be with somebody who's kind of out at the other end too. We're always going to have our struggles and setbacks. And it's like with speaking on stage. I always share with people, you don't talk about it till you're through it, because you can't be up talking about something and falling apart. And I would say that would apply to retreats as well. You need to be stable enough with your issue that if you're up there and you're the role model, don't be, I mean, you want to be vulnerable, but you don't want to be falling apart at a retreat, because you're there for support. You're there to facilitate. So anyway, I love that.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you mentioned that because it is really important. I think that we as human beings are never going to be perfect,
Yeah.
but we have to be healed to a point that we're stable enough to help other people. Do I think I could have done this like 2019? Absolutely not. I was having such bad anxiety. I would black out driving a car because, my heart rate would go up to 170 sitting. And so that was not the time. And so it's cool
Yeah.
to see in my journey that I may not be 100% better, but I'm 100% better than I was.
Right.
And that if you're hosting a retreat, it's really important that
Yeah.
you be in at least a somewhat healthy enough space to be able to help other people.
Yeah. And just, I mean, having those tools that you can teach people to keep in their toolbox at home, how they can handle their own mental health issues. Because at some point, we're all a little crazy. It just depends what level of crazy you are. But having those tools and retreats are so healing for these kinds of things. So this kind of leads into the same question, or a little bit into the same thing we were just talking about. But you often speak about integrating faith and mental health. How have your own struggles shaped the messages that you now share with others?
Definitely. As a writer, I've always been the type of person that wears my heart on my sleeve. But a writing mentor once told me to think about, are you writing from a place where you're healed, or are you writing from a place where you're still bleeding? And I think that that's what I would say about retreats. It's what I would say about my writing is I have learned to heal, and it has been a painful, excruciating journey at times. But if I can make one person know that they are loved and seen and validated and a little bit less alone, then that makes every ounce of pain that I went through worth it, because I'm letting them know that, hey, it's okay. You're not alone. You're not crazy. You're not all these things that you're probably telling yourself that you are. I think they say that at least 80% of the things that you think about yourself all day are not true. They're just regurgitations of the day before. And I think that my heart behind everything I do, whether it's the retreat or my books or my social media, is I want to come across as authentic. I'm not trying to be something that I'm not. As a teacher, I always told my students, what you see here is what you're going to see in the grocery store. I'm not
Yeah.
going to try to put up a front. And I think it's important to create an environment of people that also feel that way. And if you're struggling feeling that way, coming to this retreat can really help. And so for my retreat, for example, I really handpicked and prayed over every single person that I invited to come as a speaker or as a leader or a therapist or a counselor, because I wanted it to be somebody that I trusted and somebody that proclaims that same message. And all of these people, I believe, are people that have gone through struggles or still going through struggles, but they have at least somewhat come out on the other side. And yeah, they're still struggling. We're all still
Yeah.
struggling, but they're struggling now from a place where they can say, I know what it's like to be where you are. And I have often still been there.
Yeah.
But we're going to get through it together.
Well, and writing it alone is so healing. And we always hear that about journaling and doing a gratitude list. And I mean, I know you hear the same thing over and over, but it seems like when you really need to hear it and apply it, you're going to hear it again. I'm all about repetition. I have this thing with threes. I write about that in my book, from my near-death experience. And oh boy, that's been a blood, sweat, and tear book. I'm telling you, that's raw and real as it gets. I mean, I've ran for political office before, so I felt like all my skeletons were out. But in that process of writing that book and digging deeper and having all these stories come up, it's like, oh, to share that and just put your heart out there. I mean, yeah, I love being authentic and vulnerable. I always have been, but this is like really raw. So I love that part. And I feel like with retreats that is what people experience. It's that digging deep. You can do a retreat online. You can do events online. You can even go to events that
call themselves retreats and you're sitting in a conference room for 3 days. That's not really what I call a retreat, even though that's just kind of one of the models. I just think, when you just go and can have some space in nature and really journal and write and do things, there's so much more healing can come out of that. So love it, love it, love it. All right. If a listener could walk away from this episode with one message, what would you want it to be?
I think first of all, if you are struggling with any type of mental or physical health issue, I want you to know that you're not crazy and you're not less than, and that you are not alone because you struggle. But I would pair that with knowing that not only are you not alone, but I don't want to leave you hopeless. You are not without hope, and that real practical biblical help is available to you. And seeking help and reaching out doesn't mean that something is wrong with you. I think the bravest step that we can often take is acknowledging that we're not okay, that we are tired on the inside, and that it's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to be there without hope. And so today I would offer you that hope.
Yeah, it's okay to not be there without hope. I love that. I'm all about hope. That's definitely part of my shift. In my book, the shift stands for acronyms, and hope's one of them. Hope has to be right up there, and the world needs hope more than ever right now, and healing. So I love that you're out there supporting people with those kinds of issues, and we can heal. I mean, our bodies are made to heal, which means our minds are made to heal. Yeah. Yeah, I love that. That's a great way. Well, I appreciate you being on the show today, and I thank you. And we will put all of Amber's information down in the show notes so that you'll be able to get a hold of her. What would you say is the best way to get a hold of you if somebody wants to reach out?
I would say you can either go to my Instagram at Amber Ginter Author and send me a DM, or just go to amberginter.com. There's a contact form there. The amberginter.com/mental reset, you'll find the information about the retreat that we talked about today.
Oh,
but you
great.
can contact me through any of those methods.
Okay, great. So all those links will be, again, below here. You can check them out and go and connect with Amber. That would be amazing. Sounds like Instagram's her place where she hangs out. So you got that as well. All right. Well, again, thank you for being a great guest, and we will see you all next time on the show.
Welcome to All Things Retreat Podcast. I'm Holly Porter, your host and CEO of Retreat R&R. With over 25 years of experience in designing transformative retreats, I'm here to share insights and inspiration to help you create extraordinary experiences. Whether you're a pro or just starting out, you'll find valuable ideas here. Enjoy the ride. Let's dive in. Thinking about hosting a retreat? Before you dive in, let's make sure you're really ready. Grab your free Are You Retreat Ready checklist and find out if you've got everything in place, from your purpose and pricing to your audience and agenda. Don't guess. Get clear. This quick checklist will show you exactly where you stand and what you need to make your retreat a success. Click the link below in the show notes to grab your gift and take the first step toward hosting with confidence.